Order something cheap for your kids, we're not covering them, my dad said while my sister's children got $80 seafood platters delivered with sparkler candles. My son looked down at the menu he wasn't allowed to touch. I just said, noted. When the waiter came back to confirm the bill, I pushed my chair back and said, the restaurant was one of those upscale seafood places where the hostess wears pearls and the carpet feels like walking on clouds. Oceanside Grill sat right on the waterfront, and my parents had chosen it specifically to celebrate my sister Morgan's latest promotion. The reservation was for 7:30 on a Saturday night, prime time for watching the sunset over the harbor through floor-to-ceiling windows. I arrived with my son Ryan, who was 8 years old and carrying the homemade congratulations card he'd spent 2 hours decorating with markers and stickers. My daughter Natalie, who was 5, held my hand as we walked through the parking lot. She wore her favorite pink dress, the one she saved for special occasions. Morgan was already seated when we got to the table, flanked by her husband Derek and their 2 children, Mason and Addison. Mason was 10 and Addison was 7. They both had iPads propped in front of them despite the fancy setting. My mother Patricia sat at one end of the long table, my father Gerald at the other. The arrangement left 3 seats on the side facing the water, which turned out to be for me and my kids. There she is, my father announced as we approached. He didn't stand up. My mother gave a small wave. Morgan smiled, but it was that tight smile she'd perfected over the years, the one that never reached her eyes when I was involved. Ryan handed Morgan his card. She took it with 2 fingers like it might be contaminated. Oh, how sweet. Thank you, Ryan. She set it on the empty chair beside her without opening it. The waiter appeared immediately, clearly recognizing big spenders when he saw them. He had that polished demeanor that comes from working in establishments where appetizers cost more than some people's grocery bills. Good evening, folks. Can I start everyone off with some drinks? My father ordered a scotch. My mother requested white wine. Morgan and Derek both wanted craft cocktails that required lengthy descriptions involving muddled herbs and artisanal spirits. I asked for water with lemon for myself and apple juice for the kids. Actually, my father interrupted, looking at the waiter but gesturing toward Ryan and Natalie, just waters for those 2. No need for juice. The waiter's pen hovered over his notepad. He glanced at me. Apple juice is fine, I said firmly. My father's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue in front of the staff. The waiter nodded and disappeared. How was traffic? My mother asked, directing the question to the table at large rather than to me specifically. Fine, I answered. We left early to make sure we'd be on time. We came from the country club, Morgan said. Derek just finished a round with some clients. Shot a 74. Impressive, my father said, his approval obvious. Derek leaned back in his chair with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted his place in the world. Would have been better, but the greens were tricky on the back 9. I'd heard this performance before. The casual mention of the country club, the golf scores, the client meetings. Everything designed to remind everyone at the table who the successful one was. Ryan sat beside me, swinging his legs under his chair. Natalie was studying the boats in the harbor. The waiter returned with drinks on a tray. He distributed them with practiced efficiency, saving the apple juices for last. As he set them down in front of Ryan and Natalie, my father spoke again. We should probably talk about the bill situation before we order, he said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. The table went quiet. Even Mason and Addison looked up from their screens. My father continued. Gerald and I are covering dinner for Morgan and Derek and their kids. It's a celebration for her after all. He looked directly at me. Order something cheap for your kids. We're not covering them. The words landed like stones in still water. Ripples of discomfort spread across the faces around the table. My mother looked down at her wine glass. Morgan studied her menu with sudden intense focus. Derek smirked. Ryan's face went red. He was 8, but he was smart enough to understand what had just happened. Natalie was young enough that she missed the full implications, but she sensed the tension. Her hand found mine under the table. We can handle our own bill, I said. My voice came out steady despite the anger building in my chest. Good, my father replied. Just wanted to be clear up front. Avoid any confusion when the check comes. The waiter had retreated during this exchange, probably sensing the family drama he wanted no part of. When he returned a few minutes later, my father was ready to order. "The kids will have the twin lobster tails," he said, gesturing to Mason and Addison. "And bring out the king crab legs as an appetizer for them to share." The waiter scribbled notes. "Excellent choices. Any sides with those?" "The truffle mac and cheese," Morgan added. "Both kids love it." Mason nodded enthusiastically. Addison had already returned to her iPad. My father ordered the porterhouse steak. My mother chose the Chilean sea bass. Morgan and Derek both went for the seafood towers. Everything they selected came from the right side of the menu, where the prices climbed into triple digits. When the waiter turned to me, I opened my menu for the first time. Ryan sat beside me, not touching his menu, just like my father had implicitly instructed. I scanned the options, calculating rapidly in my head. The kids' menu had basic items: chicken fingers, pasta with butter, grilled cheese. Everything under $15. "Ryan will have the grilled cheese," I said. "Natalie will have the chicken fingers. I'll take the house salad." The waiter wrote it down without judgment, but I saw the slight shift in his expression. He'd seen this movie before, I realized. Families where some members got caviar while others got crumbs. "Nothing from the main menu for yourself?" my mother asked. There might have been genuine concern in her voice, or maybe just guilt. "The salad is fine," I replied. "I'm not very hungry." It was a lie. I'd skipped lunch specifically because I knew we'd be having a nice dinner. But nice dinner apparently had conditions. The meal progressed exactly as you'd expect. The crab legs arrived first, piled high on a silver platter with drawn butter and lemon wedges. Mason and Addison descended on them with the enthusiasm of children who'd never been told no. My kids watched silently as their cousins cracked shells and dipped sweet white meat into butter that probably cost more per ounce than ground beef. "How's work?" Derek asked me, though his tone suggested he didn't actually care about the answer. "Busy," I said. "We just finished a major project rollout." "Still at that little marketing firm?" my father asked. "Yes, still there." That was all. Just a disapproving hum that somehow conveyed volumes about his opinion of my career choices. "Morgan's new position comes with a corner office," my mother said brightly, changing the subject in that way she did when conversations became uncomfortable. 30th floor with views of the whole city." 28th, Morgan corrected. "But yes, the views are incredible." "And the salary increase is substantial," Derek added. "We're looking at vacation properties in the Bahamas." "How wonderful," I said, because what else was there to say? Ryan shifted in his seat. He was trying to be patient, but 8-year-olds have their limits. The smell of garlic butter and grilled seafood filled the air around us. His stomach had to be growling. The main courses arrived with theatrical flair. The seafood towers came out first, 3 tiers of oysters, shrimp, clams, and lobster arranged like edible architecture. The lobster tails for Mason and Addison arrived on white plates with sparkler candles stuck in the top of each one. The sparklers fizzed and glittered as the waiter set them down. "Make a wish," Morgan said to her children, who giggled and waved their hands near the sparklers like they were birthday cakes. Ryan's grilled cheese came on a plain white plate with a handful of potato chips. Natalie's chicken fingers looked like they'd come from a frozen bag. My salad was mostly iceberg lettuce with a few sad tomato wedges. "This looks amazing," my father said, cutting into his steak. "Cooked perfectly." Everyone made appreciative noises about their expensive meals. I watched Ryan take a small bite of his sandwich and chew slowly, making it last. He was trying not to look at Mason's lobster tail, but his eyes kept drifting that direction. "Ryan, how's soccer going?" my mother asked, making an effort. "Good," Ryan answered quietly. "We won our last game 3-1. I scored 2 goals." "That's nice, sweetheart," she said, but she was already turning back to listen to Morgan's story about her promotion party. The dinner continued in this vein for another 40 minutes. Stories about Morgan's success, Derek's golf games, the kids' expensive private school, and their upcoming vacation plans. I contributed little, just ate my salad slowly and made sure Ryan and Natalie finished their cheap meals. Dessert menus arrived. Mason and Addison both ordered the triple-layer chocolate cake with ice cream. It was $18 per slice. Do you kids want to see the dessert menu? The waiter asked Ryan and Natalie kindly. My father answered before I could. They're fine. Just bring the check when you're ready. Ryan's face crumpled slightly, then he fixed it. That moment nearly broke me. Watching my 8-year-old son school his features into neutrality because his grandfather couldn't be bothered to spring for a piece of cake. Actually, I said, I'd like to see the dessert menu. The waiter handed one over. I scanned it quickly. The cheapest option was $5 for a scoop of vanilla ice cream. The most expensive was a flaming bananas Foster for $32. Ryan, Natalie, what would you like? We don't need dessert, Mom, Ryan said quietly. He was trying to make it easier on me. 8 years old and already reading the room, already trying to manage the adult's discomfort. I know we don't need it, I replied. But do you want it? Chocolate cake, Natalie said immediately. She was 5 and hadn't learned yet that wanting things could be complicated. Ryan hesitated. Can we afford it? The question stabbed me right in the heart. Yes, honey. We can afford it. What would you like? The chocolate cake too, I guess. You guess, or you want it? A small smile appeared on his face. I want it. Then you'll have it. I looked at the waiter. 2 chocolate cakes, please. And I'll have the crème brûlée. My father's eyebrows went up. Celebrating something? Just enjoying dessert with my children, I said smoothly. The desserts arrived on a second round of fancy plates. Ryan and Natalie dug in with genuine enthusiasm. I cracked the sugar crust on my crème brûlée and savored every bite, not because it was particularly amazing, but because it was an act of defiance on a spoon. Finally, after what felt like hours, the waiter returned with a leather billfold containing the check. He set it precisely in the middle of the table, equidistant from my father and me. Standard practice when the party dynamics are unclear. My father reached for it first. He opened the billfold and scanned the itemized receipt. I watched his expression shift from satisfaction to irritation. There's been a mistake, he said to the waiter. This has items on here that should be on a separate check. The waiter looked confused. I can certainly split the check, sir. Just let me know which items go where. Everything except the grilled cheese, chicken fingers, house salad, and 3 desserts, my father said. Those should be on a different bill. Actually, I said, pushing my chair back and standing up, I need to use the restroom. Don't wait for me to sort out the check. I picked up my purse and walked toward the back of the restaurant where the restrooms were located. But I didn't go to the bathroom. Instead, I found our waiter near the service station. Excuse me, I said quietly. I need to handle something with the bill before it gets sorted. He looked relieved to be dealing with me instead of my father. Of course, ma'am. How can I help? What's the total for the entire table right now? He checked his tablet. $647.32 before tip. I pulled out my credit card. I'd like to pay for everything except 3 items, the grilled cheese, the chicken fingers, and the house salad. Put those 3 on a separate check for my father. Everything else goes on my card. The waiter's eyes widened. Everything else? Yes. The lobster tails with the sparkler candles, the seafood towers, the steaks, the expensive cocktails, all of it. Those are the items they wanted to celebrate with, right? Consider them my gift to my sister for her promotion. He looked uncertain. Ma'am, that's over $600. I can see the math, thank you. Can you do it or not? Yes, I can definitely do that. Just want to make sure you're certain. Completely certain. He processed the transaction right there. $615.32, before tip. I added $200 for him because he'd been patient with the family drama and kind to my kids. $815.32 total. My credit card went through. I had the money because I'd been saving for months for a vacation with Ryan and Natalie. We were supposed to go to Disney World in the spring. That plan was now postponed, but watching my father's face when he realized what I'd done would be worth every penny. I returned to the table where everyone was sitting in awkward silence. My father still held the leather billfold, but now he was staring at a receipt that must have looked very different from what he expected. There's been an update to the bill, the waiter said smoothly. The lady has taken care of most of the charges. Your check, sir, is just these 3 items. He placed a new billfold in front of my father. I watched him open it. Watched his face go red as he read. Grilled cheese, $12. Chicken fingers, $11. House salad, $9. Subtotal, $32. The silence at the table was deafening. Mason looked up from his iPad, sensing something had shifted in the atmosphere. Addison continued scrolling, oblivious. Derek's smirk had vanished completely, replaced by something that looked like second-hand embarrassment. Morgan's perfectly manicured nails tapped against the table in a rhythm that betrayed her agitation. My father's hands trembled slightly as he held the small receipt. For a man who prided himself on control, on always having the upper hand in every situation, this was unfamiliar territory. He'd orchestrated the evening to put me in my place, to remind me and my children where we stood in the family hierarchy. Instead, he was holding a $32 bill while I just dropped over $800 without flinching. "You had no right," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I had every right," I replied calmly. "I'm an adult with my own money. I can spend it however I choose." "This is absurd. Patricia, say something." He turned to my mother, demanding she take his side. My mother looked between us, her wine glass clutched in both hands. "I don't know what you want me to say, Gerald. Tell your daughter she's being irrational." "Am I being irrational?" I asked, directing the question to the table at large. My father announced in front of my children that they weren't worth including in the family's celebration. He told me to order them cheap food while their cousins got seafood platters with literal sparklers. I simply decided to cover the celebration costs myself. "How is that irrational?" "You're twisting what happened," Morgan interjected. "Dad was just being practical. He and Mom were already covering 6 people. Adding 3 more would have been excessive." "Then why have the celebration at a restaurant this expensive?" I asked. "Why not pick somewhere more reasonable if budget was a concern? Or better yet, why invite us at all if we were going to be treated like charity cases who should be grateful for whatever scraps we received?" The words hung in the air. Other diners were definitely watching now, though they pretended not to be. Our table had become dinner theater, and I was past caring about the audience. Derek cleared his throat. "Look, maybe everyone is overreacting. It's just one dinner." "You're right," I agreed. "It is just one dinner. But it's also 8 years of birthday parties where Mason and Addison get elaborate gifts while Ryan gets gift cards. It's Christmas mornings where their pile of presents towers over his. It's constant comments about Morgan's success and my shortcomings. It's 1,000 small cuts that my children have noticed and internalized, even when they're too young to fully articulate it." "That's not fair," my mother said weakly. "None of this is fair, Mom. That's exactly my point." My father's face had progressed from red to nearly purple. "I will not sit here and be lectured by you about fairness. Everything your mother and I have done has been in the best interest of this family. Your version of this family, maybe. The version where Morgan is the star and everyone else is supporting cast." Morgan stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I'm not going to listen to this. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to ruin my celebration because you can't stand seeing me succeed." "I'm not jealous of you, Morgan. I'm disappointed for you. You have 2 beautiful children who are learning from your example that some people matter more than others. You're teaching them the same lessons Mom and Dad taught us, and one day they'll treat someone else's kids the way you watched yours treat mine tonight without saying a word." Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked at her children, still absorbed in their devices, chocolate smeared on Mason's cheek, Addison's lobster tail demolished down to empty shell fragments on her plate. "Come on, Derek. We're leaving." She grabbed her purse. Derek stood, hesitating. "Should we?" He gestured vaguely at the check situation. "It's handled," I said. "Congratulations again on the promotion, Morgan. I genuinely mean that." She stared at me for a long moment, something complicated flickering across her face. Then she collected Mason and Addison, and they left. The departure felt anticlimactic, lacking the dramatic exit I might have imagined. They just walked out, a family of 4 heading back to their big house with its pool and home theater, probably already dismissing this evening as another example of my instability. My father finally found his voice again. "You've destroyed this family." "No, Dad. I just stopped pretending the destruction wasn't already there. The silence at the table was deafening. "What is this?" my father demanded. "That's your portion," I said calmly, sitting back down. "The items you offered to cover. Everything else has been handled." "You paid for all of this?" Morgan's voice was sharp with disbelief. "I did. Consider it a promotion gift. Congratulations, by the way. I'm sure you've earned it." My mother's hand went to her throat. Derek looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. Mason and Addison were oblivious, scraping the last bits of chocolate frosting from their plates. "This is ridiculous," my father said. "You can't afford this." "Apparently I can, since my card went through. That money should be going to your kids' college funds or something responsible." "My kids' college funds are fine, Dad. Thank you for your concern. But you're right that I should be focusing on them." I turned to Ryan and Natalie. "Ready to go, guys?" They nodded eagerly, sliding out of their chairs. Ryan grabbed the card he'd made for Morgan, which was still sitting unopened on the empty chair. "Wait," my mother said. "You're leaving?" "Yes. We finished eating, I've paid my bill, and there's no reason to stay." I looked at my father. "Your check is $32. I'm sure you can handle that. After all, you chose a cheap meal." The comparison hit exactly as I'd intended. His face went from red to purple. "You're being childish," Morgan said. "Maybe," I agreed. "Or maybe I'm just tired of watching my children be treated like they don't matter while yours get sparkler candles on their lobster tails. Either way, we're done here." I took Ryan's hand and Natalie's hand and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard my father's raised voice and my mother trying to calm him down. I heard Morgan saying something about being embarrassed. I heard Derek laugh uncomfortably. I didn't turn around. In the parking lot, Ryan looked up at me. "Mom, was that a lot of money?" "Yes, honey. It was." "Are we in trouble?" "No, baby. We're fine." "But what about Disney World?" So he'd known about the savings. Smart kid. "We'll figure something out. Maybe we'll go next year instead." "I don't need to go to Disney World," he said seriously. Tonight was better than Disney World would have been. "How do you figure that?" "Because Grandpa was mean and you weren't scared. You were strong." Natalie squeezed my hand. "You were like a superhero, Mommy." I buckled them into their car seats, climbed behind the wheel, and sat there for a moment before starting the engine. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. "Dad." I declined it. Another call came through immediately. "Morgan." Declined. A text from Mom appeared. "Please call me. We need to talk about this." I turned my phone off. The drive home took 30 minutes. Ryan and Natalie chattered in the back seat about the boats they'd seen in the harbor and the sparkler candles that had been so cool. Their disappointment from earlier in the evening had evaporated, replaced by excitement about what they'd witnessed. At home, I got them ready for bed. Teeth brushed, pajamas on, bedtime stories read. Ryan hugged me extra tight that night. "Thanks for the chocolate cake, Mom." "You're welcome, sweetheart. And thanks for making Grandpa's face turn purple. That was pretty cool." I laughed despite myself. That wasn't the goal, but I'll take it as a bonus. After they were asleep, I sat on the couch and finally turned my phone back on. 23 missed calls. 15 text messages. I didn't read most of them, but I skimmed enough to get the general themes. From Dad: "How dare you embarrass the family? You're being irresponsible with money. This is why you'll never get ahead in life." From Morgan: "You made a scene and ruined my celebration. Everyone at the restaurant was staring. I can't believe you'd be so petty." From Mom: "Your father is very upset. Please apologize so we can move past this. Family is important." There was also a message from Derek: "Real mature, seriously." As if I needed his input on maturity. And then, at the bottom of my messages, one from a number I didn't recognize: "This is Patrick, your waiter from tonight. I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I wanted to say what you did was incredible. I've worked in restaurants for 15 years and I've never seen anyone handle a situation like that with so much dignity. Your kids are lucky to have you. P.S. Thanks for the generous tip." I read that message 3 times, then saved his number with a smile. The next morning, Sunday, I took Ryan and Natalie to the park. We packed sandwiches and had a picnic on the grass. It cost approximately $14 for all the food, and we had a better time than we'd had at Oceanside Grill, sparkler candles notwithstanding. My phone rang while we were feeding ducks near the pond. Mom again. This time I answered. Hi, Mom. Oh, thank goodness. I've been so worried. Your father is beside himself. I'm sure he is. You embarrassed him in front of Morgan and Derek. In front of the whole restaurant. He embarrassed himself, I said. And more importantly, he humiliated Ryan and Natalie. He told me to order cheap food for them while their cousins got lobster tails with candles. He was just trying to help Morgan celebrate. He could have done that without making my children feel worthless, Mom. There's a difference between treating someone special and treating everyone else like garbage. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, I know he was harsh. Harsh? Mom, Ryan asked me if we could afford dessert. He's 8 years old and he's worrying about money because his grandfather made it crystal clear that he wasn't worth spending on. What do you want me to say? I want you to say that it was wrong. I want you to say that Dad crossed a line and that you're not okay with it. But I know you won't say that because you never do. More silence. The money you spent last night, Mom said finally. Was that really your Disney World fund? Yes. Oh, honey. Don't. Just don't. I made my choice and I'm fine with it. Those kids needed to see that they matter. They needed to see that someone would stand up for them. If that cost me a vacation, so be it. Your father wants an apology. He's not getting one. He's talking about cutting you out of the will. I actually laughed. Mom, I've never expected anything from Dad's will. Morgan is the golden child, she'll get everything anyway. That's been obvious since we were teenagers. That's not true. It absolutely is true and we both know it. But that's fine. I don't need his money. I'm doing okay on my own. Are you, though? If you had to spend your vacation savings on a dinner? Yes, Mom. I'm doing fine. I have a job I'm good at, a house we love, and 2 amazing kids who deserve better than being treated as lesser than their cousins. Ryan ran up to me then, covered in duck feathers and grinning. Mom, can we get ice cream on the way home? Sure, buddy. I should let you go, Mom said. Probably. Tell Dad I said hello, but I'm not apologizing. He'll be very angry. He'll get over it, or he won't. Either way, I'm at peace with my decision. I hung up and took Ryan and Natalie for ice cream. We sat outside the shop and watched people walk by. Natalie got mint chocolate chip and ended up with green on her nose. Ryan ordered cookie dough and tried to eat it before it melted in the summer heat. Mom, Ryan said between bites, are we poor? The question caught me off guard. What makes you ask that? Grandpa said to order something cheap. And you spend all our vacation money. So I was just wondering. We're not poor, honey. We have everything we need and most of what we want. Sometimes families have different amounts of money, and that's okay. It doesn't make anyone better or worse. Mason said their house has a pool and a movie theater. That's nice for them. I like our house better. It feels more like home. Me too, buddy. The week after the dinner at Oceanside Grill passed without any contact from my family. I went to work, took the kids to school and activities, lived my normal life. I didn't miss the drama. On Friday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my mother standing there with a Tupperware container. Hi, she said. I made cookies. The chocolate chip ones Ryan likes. That's thoughtful. Come in. She followed me to the kitchen and set the container on the counter. We stood there awkwardly for a moment. Your father is still angry, she said finally. I figured. But I think what you did was brave. The words came out quickly, like she had to say them before she lost courage. I think you were right to stand up for your children. I think I should have stood up to him when he told you to order cheap food. I'm sorry I didn't. I felt tears prick my eyes unexpectedly. Thanks, Mom. I don't agree with how you handled it, she continued. Spending all that money was excessive and you did embarrass everyone. But I understand why you were angry. You had every right to be. It wasn't a complete apology or full acknowledgement, but it was more than she'd ever given me before. I decided to take it as the olive branch it was meant to be. "How's Morgan?" I asked. "Furious with you. She thinks you tried to overshadow her celebration." "I paid for her expensive meal." "How is that overshadowing?" "You made yourself the center of attention instead of her." I considered this. Maybe. That wasn't my intention, but I can see how she'd interpret it that way. "She's also convinced you'll never be able to repay that money and you'll end up asking us for help." "She's wrong. I budget carefully. We'll be fine." Mom nodded slowly. "I believe you. You've always been more sensible with money than your sister, actually. She and Derek spend everything they make, sometimes more. That big house, the country club membership, the private school, all of it stretches them thin. They just hide it better." This was news to me. They seem comfortable. They seem a lot of things. But appearances and reality aren't always the same. Mom left after extracting a promise that I'd bring the kids to visit her specifically, without Dad present. I agreed, with the condition that she never again tolerates someone treating my children as less than. "I'll try," she said. It wasn't a strong commitment, but it was honest. 3 weeks later, I got a call at work from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Ryan's mom?" "Yes, who's this?" "This is Coach Stevens from the soccer league. I'm calling because someone made an anonymous donation to sponsor Ryan for the elite training program. Usually, the sponsor identifies themselves, but this person specifically requested to remain anonymous. I just wanted to confirm that you'd be comfortable with Ryan participating." My mind raced. Elite training was expensive, something I'd looked into and reluctantly decided we couldn't swing this year. "Can you tell me anything about the donor?" I asked. "Nothing specific, sorry. They went through our online portal and checked the anonymous box. The donation covers Ryan's fees for the entire year, including equipment and tournament travel." "That's incredibly generous." "Yes, absolutely, if Ryan wants to participate." "Great. I'll send you the registration paperwork." After I hung up, I sat at my desk trying to figure out who would do something like that. Not my parents, certainly. Not Morgan and Derek. Maybe one of my aunts or uncles? But none of them even knew Ryan played soccer, much less that he was good enough for elite training. It remained a mystery until 2 months later when I ran into Patrick, the waiter from Oceanside Grill, at a coffee shop. "Hey," he said, recognizing me. "How are your kids?" "Great, actually. Someone anonymously sponsored my son for this amazing soccer program." His expression shifted slightly, a flash of something that might have been guilt or pride or both. "Patrick," I said slowly. "Did you have something to do with that? I'm not supposed to say anything." "So it was you." He sighed. "Not just me. After what happened that night, I told some of the other servers and kitchen staff about it. The story got around. A bunch of us chipped in. We wanted to do something nice for your kid after seeing how he handled that situation with such grace." I felt my throat tighten. "You didn't have to do that." "We wanted to. People who work in restaurants, we see a lot of family dynamics. We see who treats their kids well and who doesn't. Your kids are lucky to have you fighting for them. We just wanted to help fight for them too, in our own way." I hugged him right there in the coffee shop, which probably violated some social boundary, but I didn't care. Ryan thrived in the elite training program. His confidence grew. He made new friends. He scored goals and learned techniques and came home exhausted and happy after every practice. Natalie started kindergarten and joined the school choir. She sang constantly around the house, little made-up songs about everything from breakfast cereal to the color of the sky. I got a promotion at work with a raise that made the Disney World fund replenishable within 6 months. We booked the trip for spring break. My relationship with my father remained strained. We saw each other at holidays, exchanged brief pleasantries, maintained a cool distance. He never apologized for the restaurant incident. I never apologized for paying the bill. We existed in separate orbits, connected by my mother's gravitational pull but never actually touching. Morgan and I spoke even less than before. She sent a Christmas card, I sent one back. We were sisters in biology only. But Mom and I grew closer. She started coming to Ryan's soccer games and Natalie's choir performances. She brought cookies and took pictures and cheered loudly from the sidelines. She was trying, in her way, to make up for years of staying silent. One Saturday, almost a year after the dinner at Oceanside Grill, Mom and I sat in the bleachers watching Ryan's team play in a tournament. It was a beautiful fall day, the kind where the air smells like leaves and promises. "I'm proud of you," Mom said out of nowhere. I looked at her, surprised. For what? For raising good kids. For standing up for them. For being the kind of mother I wish I'd been. "You weren't a bad mother, Mom." "I wasn't a brave one. I let your father make a lot of decisions I didn't agree with. I let Morgan be favored. I let you feel second best." She wiped her eyes. "That night at the restaurant, watching you push back, I realized something. You broke a cycle. Your kids won't grow up wondering if they're loved as much as someone else. They'll know. They're easy to love," I said. "All children are. Some parents just forget that." Ryan scored a goal and we jumped to our feet, cheering. He looked up at the bleachers, found us, and waved. His smile was pure joy, untainted by doubt or insecurity about his worth. Later that night, after everyone was asleep, I found the receipt from Oceanside Grill. I'd saved it, tucked in a drawer somewhere between old birthday cards and expired coupons. $615.32 for the meal. $200 for the tip. $815.32 total. It had seemed like so much money that night. It had been so much money. But looking at it now, nearly a year later, I couldn't think of $800 I'd ever spent better. My kids knew they mattered. They knew someone would fight for them. They knew that grilled cheese and chicken fingers were sometimes just food, but sometimes they were battlegrounds where someone decided to make a stand. And they knew, without any doubt, that they were worth more than lobster tails with sparkler candles.